Welcome to the Made2Homeschool Podcast. My name is Brandon, and my wife and I are the founders of Made2Homeschool. This is part one of my conversation with our friend Kalie, the face of working to homeschool primarily on TikTok and on Instagram. Kalie is a self-described master of multitasking with 3 little ones by her side. She not only thrives as a homeschooling mom, but also runs a successful hairstyling business at a local salon. And her entrepreneurial skills extend to her side gig as a social media personality, where she shares her journey to inspire others. Join us as we explore Kalie's journey of balancing multiple roles with humor, determination, and unwavering passion. If you're new to our podcast, the important thing to know is that Made2Homeschool is a community and resource library first and foremost. You can find it at Made2Homeschool.com, where we offer monthly and annual plans for every budget and linked wherever you find these episodes. The purpose of this podcast so far has really been to share unique journeys of interesting people influencing the homeschool space online, and we hope to bring encouragement and maybe some new wisdom to the folks listening. I had a lot of fun getting to chat with Kalie, and I think y'all will get a lot out of this one. Let's get into it. Kalie, thank you so much for taking time to have this conversation with me today. We've been trying to make it happen for a while. I am super excited. I think that our audience is going to be able to get a lot out of this discussion. But I'd love to start off with the folks who don't know who you are. Could you just share a little bit about you, your family dynamics, all that?
Sure. I am a working homeschool mom. That is like the big thing that I share is that I work nearly full time outside of the home and I homeschool with my husband. We have been homeschooling for, I want to say 6 years because my oldest daughter is going into 7th grade and my middle daughter is going into 3rd grade. And I have a little baby who is almost a year old. And it's just, it's a lot, but it's wonderful. And I share that online with people because I was looking for community and I really didn't see a lot of people talking about this dynamic. And since I've been sharing, it's been wonderful because I've found community and I've been able to help lots of people, which I didn't realize when I started sharing because I was trying to help myself. To be honest, I wanted friendship and people who understood what I was going through. So, yep, that's just a little bit about me.
So when you say this dynamic, you mean like working and homeschooling at the same time?
Yeah, yeah, there is very when I started posting about it, there was nothing. I think there was one group on Facebook that I was in. Jen McKinnon, who is a good friend of mine now, she had a working homeschool mom group that I clung to. So I was like, oh my gosh, these are my only people. They're the only people who know what I'm going through. And so I joined her group and I'm like, okay, well, if there's people in this group, maybe there are people out there, or, maybe there's people who want to do this and they don't realize you can do this. So I'm going to just put myself out there. And then it became a
And
thing.
when was this? Was this like 2019, 2020?
It was 2021 because
Okay.
yeah, I did not have TikTok at all. And I got COVID. And I was like, I'm really bored. So I'm gonna get online and just like goof off. And then was like, all right, well, I could share stuff about my life. Who's gonna see it? I don't have any followers. Like nobody's gonna be judging me. And then like 6,000 people started following me, and then it just started growing like real fast. So it was crazy.
I want to ask you a lot of questions actually about your experience as I know the word's no good, but like influencer, right?
Yeah.
It's such a bad word, but
Yeah.
like, because it means nothing anymore. But
I
go
I
ahead.
think it's a good word. I think
Tell me about it. Go ahead.
people really have a negative connotation when it comes to the word influencer. Everybody is an influencer. Everyone has got a sphere of influence, okay? Even before I was like really sharing online anything, okay? I had a sphere of influence. If I talked about something that people associated me with and they trusted me with, they were going to listen to what I had to say. They were going to take my recommendations. I'm a hairstylist. So when I tell people, oh, hey, this is what you need to be doing for your hair, like they're like, oh, this girl knows what she's talking about because, I know she does. And so I don't understand why it's such a negative thing whenever you're influencing people about a topic that you're passionate about or that you know a lot about. Like it should be a good thing. There's people who are really into beauty and they share about what they know, and that's good. I'm really into a lot of things. I try to share all of those things, but one of the big things is homeschooling. So I
So
influenced that.
I love that you pushed back on that because I think the thing that I dislike is the connotation
Yeah.
that is
But there's
arisen
negative
around.
connotations to everything.
But what you just did was you're like, no, it's a perfectly fine word, and I'm taking it back and get over it. And I kind of like
Yeah.
that. That was good. Like, no, this is my word. I can use it.
That's right.
Okay, but let's come back to the perfectly good influencer later.
Yes.
We'll come back to that. But like, I want to go back to the homeschool journey because you kind of went like, hey, we've been doing it for 6 years. Here's my kids. I work. Perfect. But I want to go into how you got started. Like, what was your homeschool journey? Were you raised as a homeschool kid? What was that?
No, no. I mean, I was raised extremely sheltered in a way. I was not homeschooled. I went to public school, but I was raised Pentecostal, nearly holiness Pentecostal. So I was raised very strict. But I didn't, when I was like older, it wasn't like that, you know? So, and we just went to public school, no big deal. I had no intentions of homeschooling in any way. And then when we had kids, I was like, I don't know. I'm feeling really sad sending her off to school. I just have this gut feeling this isn't the right decision. But I had the perfect out. I work, so I work. So I have to go to work. I can't homeschool because I work. It was my out. And so we sent her to public school for kindergarten. And I just knew it was the wrong decision. My husband was not really like, oh, yeah, let's homeschool. He was like, you need to get over it. You need to just calm down. She's fine. Well, we sent her to school and she developed what I didn't know at the time was anxiety. It was started with like feeling sick all the time. And then it was her really struggling at school to just do the right thing. She was always in trouble. She was having lots of issues, physical issues that then led us to realizing she's got anxiety. And it was the same year as um, one of the school shootings. And apparently I have anxiety as well. And so I took her out of school that next day and we just stayed home
And
and I
she's how
started
old at this
praying.
point? Just for
She's
reference.
kindergarten. This
Kindergarten.
is all
Okay, got it.
kindergarten.
Okay.
All kindergarten.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, I can't keep sending her to school. I know in my heart that God is telling me that this is not where she should be at. And clearly it is not a healthy place for her as a human being, just her, you know? So I was like, you know what? God is calling me to do this. I had a couple of friends that were homeschoolers and they were really encouraging me. You can totally do this and giving me all of like these tips and tricks and really taking me under their wing and being my big sister. And so over the summer, I was like, I think I can do this. We'll start in the summer and I can see if I can handle both because I don't work a full 40-hour week and I don't work conventional like schedule. So I was like, I think I can fit this in. And then I looked up to see if other people were doing it. That's when I found Jen McKinnon's group and I like loved her and was like, okay, I think I can do this. We tried this summer. It was beautiful. I mean, obviously, like any new journey, like there's going to be bumps and stuff in the road. And there were, but it was a night and day difference in my child. So we've just been doing it ever since.
Okay. So this is kindergarten. So you said 6 years ago?
This is let me see. It must have been 2018, 2019, I think.
Okay, yeah. So 5, 6 years ago, and you started homeschooling. So you were doing it for a year or two before you started sharing online, right?
Yeah, I hadn't been doing it like a terrible long time.
So when you got started, and you mentioned Jen McKinnon, right? And I wrote that down
Mhm.
because that's a name I don't know, so I have to look her up.
Oh, she's
Um,
lovely.
I'm sure, yeah. Like apparently she was inspiring to you to inspire other people, which is super cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Um, when you got started, did you have any idea what you were doing?
No.
Awesome. What was that
No.
What was that part like for you?
It was like kind of free flying a little bit, but everybody was just so encouraging. And I mean, I really do. And this goes back to kind of the reason why I started sharing because I had what I consider like a homeschool big sister. So I had somebody that was like, hey, I'm just a few steps ahead of you. I don't know everything, but this is what I know. These are the rules. These are the laws. Here's where you can find these things because it's a big world. There are thousands of curriculums out there. There's thousands of like methodologies and styles and co-ops and it is overwhelming. And so to just have one person to say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." You don't have to do that, but it'll give you just a little step in a direction. And I think that was enough for me to feel like, okay, I'm just going to take this one step at a time. And I always had the mentality of like, okay, if this doesn't work, she can always go back to school. Like, I'm not signing a contract for the rest of our lives. But I do believe I'm called to this, especially right now. And so I was just doing the next right thing that I felt I was being called to do, instead of thinking like, all right, well, I know our full plan until college, because she was in kindergarten. So
So you were trying to take it kind of one step at a time. Was there a certain methodology? And I think I know the answer to this. We've talked about this, but was there a methodology you gravitated toward, like a style of homeschooling, or like
initially,
how did you figure out what you do?
well, so there's actually a really cute little quiz online by the eclectic homeschooler that I had just randomly stumbled upon. And I used to direct everyone to it because I'm like, oh gosh, this is great. Because it really kind of laid out the different things that were out there. And I took it and it was like, you're definitely pretty eclectic. And you kind of gravitate towards Charlotte Mason. I'm like, okay, love the outdoors. But I mean, we're talking about a 5-year-old at this point, a very young 5 to 6-year-old. Okay.
You're like, go out
So
in the woods.
I'm like, yeah, like let's go outside, let's nature study and stuff. And then it didn't really click for her because she's a different kind of learner than that in that methodology. So we just kept experimenting until we found what was right for her. So now, I mean, we are pretty traditional, but it took a couple of years to, just find the path. And I mean, when they're younger, you can kind of be a little bit more relaxed with it because they're just little kids and they learn a lot through playing. But as they get older, you see their different learning styles coming into play. So,
I want to ask you about that. We've got an 8-year-old going into 4th grade here next year, right? And I've got my 5-year-old going into kindergarten next year, and I'm
mhm.
learning so much because I'm the homeschool person, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
I'm the one, like
you're
I'm trying to
it.
learn them. So I want to ask you about that. I also want to ask you kind of about that transition time from like her homeschool years to like how you were nailing those things down. But we're gonna have to wait after this quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about that.
Looking for a fun supplement to your homeschool curricula? Hi, I'm Dr. Georgia Purdom of Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, and the Ark Encounter.
And I'm Sarah Eshelman, editor-in-chief of Kids Answers magazine.
Kids Answers is the fun curricula supplement you've been looking for. It's a quarterly magazine just for kids, packed with fun animal facts, science experiments, stories, and more.
With Kids Answers, we want to give parents a resource that they can trust to deliver fun content that kids love, combined with solid teaching about the Creator, His world, and His Word. With a Kids Answers subscription, your kids will enjoy fascinating facts about some of God's amazing creatures, a variety of fun activities, science experiments, exciting stories, and more. And everything in Kids Answers points kids to their Creator and His Word.
Be sure to stop by our Answers in Genesis booth to learn more about Kids Answers and everything else AIG, the Creation Museum, and the Ark Encounter have to offer your homeschool family.
Before we took that little break there, Kalie, we were about to get into that whole dynamic where you started your first child homeschooling, and I was curious about like how you figured out your style, and you were like, "Oh, I'm definitely more eclectic, learning about my child's style." But also, in the midst of all that, you're working.
Yes.
How did that work in that first year logistically? Was that transition really difficult, and how did you manage it?
I honestly, I think I anticipated it being more difficult than it was, because in my mind, before I knew anything about homeschooling, I'm like, oh gosh, like how am I going to fit so much stuff into like what I'm thinking is such a small amount of time. But when I really reframed that, I realized that it wasn't any more time. As a matter of fact, it was saving me time and giving me more time with my child, because the time that they were at school, I didn't feel like they were really getting what I was able to give them whenever she came home. I was able to give her more in less time because it was such one-on-one work. And so it really didn't take up a ton of our day. I mean, when she was little, we were not doing school for more than 2 hours a day.
Right.
And that was the same amount of time I was spending with her after kindergarten with like after school stuff. So if she had like a little project, or if she had some spelling words or some reading to do, like I'm spending the same amount of time plucking away at her homework as I was doing homeschool with her. And when I realized that it was, and which is why I took the summer, because I'm like, she's going to be home with me either way. This is just an extension of me parenting her. So instead of her, goofing off in the backyard or watching TV or whatever, we're going to take 2 hours of our day and learn some phonics and do some math and, pull a science book out and read about somebody from science or, something like that. It was so simple when you just looked at it as what it really was, which is just a checklist of random things that you need to do. It doesn't take that much time. So I definitely think most people overthink it.
So I'm one of those people, Kalie.
Yeah.
I significantly overthink all the things. You might have figured that out by now. But so kindergarten, I got my daughter going into kindergarten next year.
Mhm.
Did you buy curriculum for kindergarten? Did you just
I didn't. I didn't buy curriculum. I got the cheapest stuff that I could find because I was really like I said, I had an out. I could go, I'm working. No one's going to look at me badly if I say, oh, well, it didn't work out. I'm working. And so I really had an out saying I could just bail from this if it really stunk, So I bought the cheapest thing I could find. It was, I think it was Easy Peasy, which you don't have to buy. It's actually free. I downloaded some of it and then I bought the workbooks. I think they're like $5. And then I found Good and Beautiful. You can find the free PDF, downloaded it. We did that. And so I just used all of the free things I could find. And that way I had zero investment here. Like the only investment was my time, my effort, my mental health. Outside of that, that was it. Because I was like, it's like any tool. It's the person using the tool that is making the tool work, right? And at this age, they're not going to be writing Shakespeare. They're just learning their letters and numbers, and they're learning basic addition and reading.
So I shouldn't be trying to teach my daughter the quadratic equation at 5.
You can. I've seen people do it. I got a friend who's been teaching her daughter Latin since age 4.
Yeah, those classical educators are super cool, man. But
couldn't be me, but I love it for her.
It's so good. It's so great. My daughter, there's other things going on there right now. We're not doing. Right. We're doing. Don't eat that, or things like that.
Yes, relatable.
Yeah.
10-month-old, 11-month-old, relatable.
Oh yeah. So we're getting through these things. In that process, Kalie, you're working. You're spending 2 hours or so. That makes perfect sense, and that's one of those things I hear from a lot of aspiring homeschoolers. Like, oh, I don't have the time. Like, do you know how much time they spend actually doing instruction in school?
This is why you need a big sister or big brother in your case.
Thank you, ma'am.
For homeschooling, because you don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't know that. And this is another reason why I felt so compelled to share online. Specifically, I used to share day in the lives. I would share what we did. This is the schoolwork that we did today, because when I first started, I'm like, I just need a picture. I just want to see what they're doing. What are you doing? I need to know, because I need to compare and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm like, well, if I share what we're doing and I feel like we're doing the right thing, I'm doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing legally, then maybe I'll help someone else who's like, I don't know what to do. Can someone else show me what they do so I can do what you do? I'm influencing,
Yeah.
Good homeschooling.
There are so many layers of that and a million different questions people don't answer. And I'm actually going to take a note, because those hurdles, let's say, that make you think, or maybe not even think, like for us, all those perceived hurdles, like the amount of time, things like that. Yeah. Those are the things that unconsciously, I realized later on, kept us from even really considering homeschool as an option.
Many people, they will automatically write it off based off of their preconceived notions that are completely unfounded with what is really happening in homeschooling. They don't realize that there are even curriculum companies. That's something someone asked me. They're like, so do you just make curriculum? How do you find out what to teach? I'm like, there are thousands and thousands of curriculums out there. You just follow the curriculum like any other teacher. You just
get your clay tablet and your papyrus.
Listen, I found that to be a strange question, but if you truly were coming in this, this is
I knew nothing 2 years ago, Kalie. I'm 100%.
Right. So, I understand when you're coming from a place of your true ignorance, because you don't know,
Yeah. And we'll come back to some of those hurdles. I think, but a big one for you and one for a lot of parents at that time was the working thing. So you and your husband are working outside the house. It's not just the amount of time you spend with your daughter, or son, or any of your kids, or anybody listening, your children. It's also well, wait, what do I do while I'm at work? Did you have a grandparent involved?
We do have my parents both work. They're
Okay.
pretty young. They're actually quite young. My mom was only a teen mom when she had me, so they're very young. They're still very much in the working world full time. And so my mom has Mondays off, and she's had different days off over the years. She's a postal worker, and so she works 5 days a week. And on her day off, she keeps the girls for just a couple hours so that I can work on her day off. And my dad also does on his day off
Wow.
because hers alternates. So one of them will keep the girls for just a little while so that I can go to work. And it's only about maybe 4 hours. So I usually go in the afternoons, unconventional schedule. So I do school with the girls in the morning and I'll go into work in the afternoons, just a couple of days a week because, this economy,
Sister. So you're working part-time hours, right?
Well,
Equivalent.
it's between 25 and 30 hours a week in the salon. And then because I am a small business owner, I own my own booth. And so I run the business end of it just in my spare time.
So it's really a full-time job. You're doing a full-time job then, Kalie.
Yes. Yeah. But whenever people assume that I work at home, I don't actually do the working physical part of it at home. Like, no, I'm working outside of my house. Everyone always asks me, so what's your work from home job? Which I know a ton of work from home parents that do that, but that's not what I do. I'm out of the home. And I actually know quite a few parents who work out of the home as well.
But I think those are the unique things people need to hear. And you know this to some extent. Like, you were part of the story, or the trail of breadcrumbs the Lord was leading for Brigitte and for me, for us to realize that we can homeschool, as well as the whole team of contributors that Made to Homeschool. Like, it's like every excuse we had before we even had a chance to mention the excuse, they were like, this is the drama we lived through to make this happen. I'm like, oh
yeah,
we have mild difficulties. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
I do. I literally just talked about this because there's so many things that God calls you to that he's not going to make it like this easy little road. Like, it's not going to be easy, but it's supposed to produce endurance. It's supposed to produce faith and obedience. And those things are rewarded. God rewards those things, but he wants you to have a little bit of a tough time because he wants you to be faithful and listening to him. So I mean, but he will give you encouragement as you need it in the form of a friend saying, hey, this is the hard thing that I just went through, but you can do it. I did it. God helped me through it. Like, that's what it's.
I think Abby
God.
Halberstadt from M is for Mama just wrote a book, or a while back wrote a book called "Hard is not the same as bad."
Yeah.
Like, I love that phrase. I haven't read the book, but I love the phrase.
I love that.
Like, yeah, it's hard. This is a very hard season for our family.
Same.
But it's a good.
It is.
It's the hard we chose.
Yeah.
Which is very different from the hard imposed upon us by our culture, our society, governing authorities, any of that. Like, it's different when, I'm sorry, I'm still got that new homeschooler on him, right?
I know. Listen, I am totally with you because I 100% believe that it is about choosing your hard. It is hard to homeschool. It is hard to work and homeschool. It's hard to work and send your kids to public school. I did that too. It was equally hard. It was equally hard to not have any control over what she was being exposed to.
Yes.
It was equally hard to not really have a say in what she was learning, to not be able to push her forward if she was doing better and hold her back if she was doing worse. Those are hard things to deal with as a parent too. It doesn't make anyone better, but you get to choose it. So, I mean, yes, it's going to be hard.
There's a difference, and sometimes I'm come up with really weird analogies, Kalie, so I'm just going to say the weird one I came up with. It's like pain. Pain that you understand the cause of.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that has a purpose is so different than, and I guess for me, like, I have some autoimmune stuff that when it first started, it was this excruciating 8-9 pain. And not only that, I didn't know what was happening. And it was terrifying.
Right. I think
must be very different from like childbearing, which is like my wife. I have watched my wife deliver 3 babies. That woman is a superhero, and she went through. I watched what happened, okay, Kalie? But she did it with a purpose. And so my wife, who can't handle stubbing her toe without screaming, pushed out babies like a boss because there's
Yeah.
a purpose. And I think as we're talking, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't a pain that happened to me. This is a pain I've chosen. And I think that those things that we know, understand, have some say over, again, not better or worse.
Right. But I mean, there is a certain level of bond that you end up having with your child as you're going through this journey together, because like if you're honest with your kids, you're like, listen, baby, I am still learning. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really doing my best to teach you the very best that I can. So we're in this journey together. So everything that we're doing, we're trying to do to fit you best, to do whatever it is that helps you get to the goal that you're supposed to be at the best way, and going through that together, and trying different curriculum, trying different methodologies, like doing the things that we need to do to find what works for them. I mean, that journey alone is such a bonding thing. And I mean, it is not easy all the time. There are days where I'm like, oh Lord, I'm gonna need extra prayer tonight. Like it's harder some days than others. And I mean, I think if you're candid with your kids, that kind of thing, it really produces a wonderful bond.
Kalie, I want to ask you, because you're dropping some pearls of wisdom here. And I, like, sincerely, I don't mean that sarcastically, but sincerely, you're dropping some pearls of wisdom. This is kind of what's been happening with your social media presence, starting with TikTok, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into that because I think our audience is going to find some things that they resonate with. To hear that, though, they'll have to come back for episode 2 of this conversation. If you guys want to hear that, make sure you catch us next week. We'll see you then.